Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to StarryTelling, where the stories, myth, and magic of the night sky come to life. My name's Amanda Walsh. I'm the founder of Astrology Hub, and I am here with astrologer and sacred astronomer Gemini Brett. And we are very excited to be speaking with you today. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to be talking about whether or not the stars show that we are currently in a great awakening. So you hear people talk about this time as, this is a great awakening, or, lots and lots of people are waking up. We are going to explore from an astrological and astronomical perspective whether or not that appears to be true. Super excited to dive into this topic, Brett. Let's review the scavenger hunt from last week first. So for those of you new to this show, we do a scavenger hunt.
I don't know if I'm live, but we got a bit of frozen.
Oh, shoot, you're frozen again. Okay, I don't know if we're both frozen. Let's see. There's some comments coming in, but you're definitely frozen.
How about now?
Oh, now you're good, but then you just froze again. Jenna and, okay, Rhiannon, hi. It's great to see you guys here. Yeah, Brett, you're totally frozen.
Oh, no.
Okay, not frozen. Is there something you can do on your end for the connection?
I'd have to reset my internet. I just checked my speed though, and it's flying. So
okay,
it might be the space. I mean, I could reset it and come back in if you want to share about your experience. I could try to tune into that on my phone, and then I can come back in. So let's try that out.
Good idea. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. I see Caroline. How are you? And Salvador and Jenna. So grateful that you're here. Okay. So what we normally do is we start with the review of the scavenger hunt from last week. For those of you new to the show, every week we are doing a scavenger hunt, which is Brett's assignment for us to get out under the night sky and observe something. So maybe it's, so we've had lots of different things to do so far. Last week, we talked about the birthplace of the sun, and Brett did a brilliant storytelling and kind of taking us along a path of concluding that the smoke of creation, or the golden phallus of Osiris, which is below Orion's belt in the constellation, is potentially where our sun was born. And so our assignment was to go and spend some time with that. I love it. The smoke of creation, or the golden phallus of Osiris. First of all, I'm wondering how many of you did that. So please share if you did, and anything that came through for you as you were doing it. And then I wanted to share something about an experience that I've had now twice. And I wanted to see if anybody else has had this, because it's been this mind-blowing experience. So I was outside looking at Osiris's smoke of creation, or Orion's smoke of creation. And I saw a shooting star that looked like a huge ball of fire that was so big and looked so close that I was expecting to see a big explosion and hear a big explosion on Haleakala, which is the mountain right behind me. It was just so different than any shooting star that I've ever seen, they all seem real, they're just smaller and they seem farther away. This was so big. It was like a big, huge ball of fire. And I've seen it twice now. I saw it also the other morning as I was looking at the night sky. I saw the same exact kind of shooting star. And it's one of those like, oh my God, what just happened? And I'm just wondering if anybody else has seen this. I'm looking, did not, but sounds cool. Yes, exactly. Well, Salvador, this is the first time we're doing it live on YouTube. We normally do it live on Facebook and then post it on YouTube, but we're using a new platform that's allowing us to go live on both platforms at once. But it looks like nobody else has experienced that. Okay. I don't know what's going on with that. It seems like an incredible maybe aliens, says Corrine. Yeah, potentially. Anyways, it was actually quite frightening the first time, because it was like, oh, here we go. There's a huge, like, something is headed towards the earth, and I'm watching it happen right now. So other people were observing and feeling connected. But yeah, it's been really amazing, Brett, to have this experience now of looking at the night sky. I find myself feeling a lot more oriented with, it's like I can look up and figure things out a little bit more. The other night, when you explained to me where the Pleiades were, I've been now looking and I can, it's very faint, especially with the moon getting brighter. It's really faint and kind of hard to see. But I've been able to pick it out without having to use my app, which has been really amazing. So that's what we're doing here, everybody. Every week we're getting more and more oriented with the sky, and there's this relationship forming for anybody who's playing along with us. I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing. And Brett, we see you now. Welcome back.
Thanks. Yeah, hopefully the net connection's better. Sounds like I was listening. Sounds like you saw a fireball.
I did see a fireball.
Right. And that's like literally what they're called, which is cool. Right. And for a good reason, because as you saw, it's not just like a shooting star, which we're used to. It looks like it's something that's going to come blow up the whole earth. Right.
Yes, exactly.
And it's literally a bigger piece of material. Right. So what shooting stars is they are pieces of rock or comet or sometimes like satellite or the space junk that we put up there, right, falling into Earth's atmosphere. And then our atmosphere burns it up, right? And hopefully burns it up completely before it reaches the ground, or else, some pain can come. And actually in that Orion zone where we've kind of been focusing on in this last week, and as you said, and I love that you're witnessing this, Amanda, the moon has come through. In fact, one of the reasons why I was really encouraging people to tune into Orion is I knew that if they did night after night and their weather allowed, that they would get to see the moon come sit on Orion's club, right? And which happens every month as the moon swims by. But as she does, she kind of blows out the sky. She, lights up the earth less than the sun does, but hides the heavens a bit. So the Pleiades that you're witnessing, and I'm so glad that the moon, like some great, celestial laser pointer, kind of directed your gaze there. As the moon now heads off and away, then the Pleiades will brighten up. I mean, they're not particularly bright, but as you saw, they're this beautiful kind of cluster of stars. And as we were speaking about last time, like you shared with Hawaii, we had some.
Oh, no. Did he freeze for you guys too? Well, thank you for your patience. I think what we might have to do is try this on Zoom, our usual platform. I don't know if it's the platform or if it's you, Brett, but you just froze again.
I mean, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, my internet speed says it's like 350 MB. I mean, that's really fast.
Right.
So it shouldn't be that.
Okay.
Could be.
Well, let's try again. I mean, you stopped for a second there.
We got fireballed. Anyway, friends, it's Cameron. It's cool to see Cameron Allen chiming in here. The first time Cameron and I met, we were at a astrology, and actually more in Cameron's ilk, like an herbalism conference that had some astrology. And so I was really stoked. It's something that Judith Hill puts on, that I know you've had Judith on the show before. And Cameron and I got to go outside, and I think we were engaging with Jupiter. So it's such a sweet way to bond. And there's been many times where Cameron and I have gotten to stand side by side and under the mysteries of the heavens, which is a wonderful thing. So it's wonderful to see your name on here right now, Cameron. And yeah, I mean, I love this setup where we can actually see people commenting in and engage. I think that's wonderful, because I would love to hear more stories of how it is that you're feeling the heavenly connection, friends. And hopefully this weekly happening with Amanda is going to encourage that more and more. And so, beautiful thing is we're all around the world. We're all under the same stars, right? So in the northern and the southern hemisphere, we don't necessarily see it all the same way, that's for sure. And there's some stars like in Australia that I don't get to see here in California, but certainly the zodiacal stars and beings who are close by, like Orion, they're global events. But, one of my favorite things was, I think Julie wrote in from Australia of how she sees Orion upside down.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Right. Which is a really cool thing, because if you think of it, actually the Lakota, one of the ways that they saw Orion was like the chief's hand. Right.
Oh. Okay, well, I don't know. Salvador, I want to keep going and don't want to give up, but I also want you guys to be able to hear. So you just froze when you were doing this.
Sad.
I know.
Yeah, it kind of seems like we better close it down and start elsewhere.
Okay.
I hear Lauren writing Mercury shadow. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do, Amanda. I mean, there's no way I could like call in, right? It's a browser thing.
Right. Well,
I could try switching over. Let me try one more thing. So sorry for the delay, friends. And Amanda, if you want to keep sharing, I'll try to get another thing happening here.
Well, one of the things I would just love to continue hearing from all of you. It's so much fun that we can see your comments now. We've never been able to see them when we're on Zoom broadcasting. Jenna, I literally told someone today that astrology is pseudoscience. And I said, do you believe in night and day? And boom, I fireballed them. That's so great. That's all I had to say. Thanks, Brett. Okay, so for those of you who haven't been tuning into StarryTelling, one of the things that we talked about a few weeks ago is this, how do you speak to people about astrology who don't believe in it and who just, say the party line of, oh, it's a pseudoscience and it's not really real. And Brett said to start with the night and day and just, point out that two celestial bodies have an impact on our lives here, two very obvious ones, the sun and the moon. And do you feel different? Do you do different things based on whether it's day or night? So Jenna, I love that story. That's so awesome. Okay. So some people are saying they don't see it freeze.
Weird. The plot thickens. I'm going to try to switch over and like tether and not be on my...
Okay, see, now do people see him frozen right now? Thanks for your patience. And thanks, Salvador. I love Astrology Hub. So many interesting topics and presentations. I'm so glad you like it. And Sandy is saying it's okay. We're in the journey of the new platform. The universe is just saying pause. Awesome. One of the things I've been noticing, so have you been going out under the night sky more since we started StarryTelling? And have you been going out with your app? And have you been going out with your chart app, whatever you use for that? What I keep noticing little things like why are some stars named M blah blah blah, and other ones have like really cool names? Like why did we just go with like M42 and not find some cool name? And like why is it always M? And I'm sure there's very logical answers to these things, but it's like this whole new place to explore and have fun with. Now he's gone. Ben happy. Yes, he's frozen.
No, I'm back.
Okay, he's back. All right.
Yeah. So okay. I don't know. I just tried another thing that definitely did not work. That was like an official disappearance, and now I'm back on. So we're just gonna have to see.
All right. Well, so I brought up another topic that I don't want us to cover today for sure, but just this whole like, how do they name the stars? Like, why are some like M42, whereas others are like Maya or, something cool? Vega.
Well, yeah, let's start there. Actually, so like M42 is not a star at all. And that's such an amazing thing about, Orion's belt and this thing that looks like a star. And if you tune in, especially with your new telescope that's going to arrive, or if you look through
mid-March,
a zoom lens or binoculars, like that thing that looks like a star to our naked eye, and it actually looks a little fuzzy, it looks a little different, is actually a nebula. Right? I mean, it's very far away, thousands of light years, this amazing birthplace of stars. It's like hot gas. And, and so that's the Messier objects. Messier was a famous astronomer. And so those are
M1s, all the M1s are nebulae?
All the M1s are Messier objects. They're not all nebula. There's different like globular clusters and all sorts of things that we don't want to get too nerdy about right now. But most of them are naked eye phenomena that it turns out, once we were able to zoom in a little further, are not stars at all, but are these other phenomena like nebula.
Brett, can I share a story about when I was ordering my telescope and the conversation I had with the astronomer on the phone? Oh, shoot, he's frozen again. Oh, my God.
I guess I don't want to hear that one. Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so it was like this amazing healing moment. So I'm on the phone ordering my new telescope. He was talking about how they have had so many orders, like their business is skyrocketing since 2020. Like I guess everybody's wanting to go out under the sky and look at the stars. And so at one point I ventured up the courage to ask him, so what do you think about astrology? And he goes, when I first started studying the sky, I really looked down on astrology. I just really looked down on it. I thought it had no merit. He goes, but the longer I'm studying and the more that I'm experiencing, the more I think it probably has some merit. He goes, especially after last year, because after last year, I really could no longer deny that there seems to be an influence of the planetary movements here on Earth. And then he goes, this is the best. He goes, I really, because then I was like, well, astronomy and astrology were together, like for the longest time. You didn't study one without the other. He goes, yeah, I've been reading about that. And he goes, I really think it's the church. I think it's the church who broke us up. And that's why we've been separate for so long. And I was like, I totally agree. But Brett, it felt like two people who had been married before, but had been split up by some force. And now we're coming back together and we were able to share our love of the sky. And it was like, we didn't need to disagree. We both could love it from different angles. And it was really actually quite touching, the whole experience.
Yeah. And did they want to split up is a good question, right? Because sometimes we want to, and then we want to come back together. Or sometimes maybe we're forced apart. I mean, maybe right. As that astronomer noticed it was the church. I think maybe that's a place where we want to be today, because it seems to get into the topic at hand. It might be tricky considering the connective issues, and we'll just let it flow. One thing I've always wondered about is well, what about the person who doesn't know a solar eclipse is aligning, where they are right then, So the astronomers are flying across the continents, going to the place, connecting to where it's all going to go down. And that way, actually, I love that astronomers, in a sense, I don't think they would call it this, but they're often doing ceremony, and before lockdowns and stuff, it was this very cool community ceremonies that would happen where the event is bringing everyone together. So while the astrologers are hiding in some trunk in the closet in the basement, because the weirdness of the eclipse, the astronomers are out there partying, taking pictures, and, astrologers are shifting that now too, for sure. But I've always admired that about the astronomers. I wouldn't want to necessarily use words like ceremony with them, but there are these really cool community gatherings. There's a lot of astronomy clubs where they're meeting in person. They're looking at stars. You're looking through each other's telescopes. And when, I really appreciate that. In that way, they're very reverently coming to the temple of the sky.
Yeah.
As long as you're not going to say, hey, that's also doing something to you. Right. I just I'm going kind of Mr. Robot style in my video screen, but whatever. So, however, what if you're just coming out of the grocery store and you're putting your bags in the car and suddenly the moon starts eclipsing the sun? Right. So even if you're educated as most of us are in today's day and age, and what a solar eclipse is, that's still going to be super freaky. The temperature drops, weird things, twilight, 360 degrees, But why I bring in that example, that I've contemplated that a lot, is what about the astronomer who's actually never heard of astrology? Because that's going to be very rare today, but it actually could happen, right? Or somebody just hasn't considered it. Oh, that's just sun sign stuff. It's not, and they look at, oh, wow, Jupiter and Saturn are all aligned. And then, oh my gosh, there's this pandemic lockdown thing.
Yeah.
Or, how long would it take for them to notice similar planetary alignments might express on Earth? And, so there might be some astronomers out there who themselves are kind of creating astrology through this experience. You see what I'm saying? Because they're coming to the sky, they're watching the 2017 eclipse and then seeing the wildfires take place shortly after, those kinds of things. And of course, you're going to have a leg up if you've heard about astrology, but also not if you've been a lifelong astrology denier, which is true for most astrologers like this cat that you talked with on the phone, right? So that's kind of I was trained that way. I went to school, right? So I had some boundaries that I had to break out of to embrace the very possibility of astrology. I mean, I had to get weird in other ways first, and then I was like weird enough to be like, okay. And on the other side, it's like, no, this isn't weird at all. Like, this is actually just how it works. Like, this actually makes more sense than suggesting day and night wouldn't have an effect on my life. Mm-hmm. That being said, I missed the name in our weird shutdowns here. But I love that somebody used that thing. Oh, you don't believe in day and night then, right? That's fun. It's a really cool one. Then we can get to the tides of the moon. Like, they pull on Earth's waters, they pull on your waters too. But at some point, like, how far out are you going to go, right? Does Pluto really do something to you, and how, right? So that's a big issue with the materialists, is they want to see the math. They want to see the three-dimensional thing. I'm actually working on that personally, but we don't have that to offer. And with astrology, so much of this is astronomical, but there's a lot of things in astrology that are also not. Like the idea of dispositorship, that this planet rules this sign. And so a planet in the sign is kind of calling on the teachings of some other planet because it lives in that planet's house. Like, that's not really an astronomical thing. Or a lot of the timing techniques, like, transits are very astronomical. I mean, Mars is now transiting this place in Taurus where maybe, the moon resided in one of the people who were experiencing this, like at the time that they were born. And that's like a timing technique. The clock was wound up when they were born. And at some point, about every 2 years, Mars is going to cross that place. And does that activate somebody? That's like another consideration. There's actually not some physical thing happening there. It's not like Mars is actually transiting the moon, but it's transiting that place of the heavens where the moon was in the time of the birth. And there's something that comes through there, right? But when we start getting to secondary progressions where we're turning, I'm how old am I again? I'm 45, right? So I'm going to look at a chart from when I'm 45 days old. It's like, what? Or like solar arc directions. I know Frank Clifford at Astrology Hub's Inner Circle has recently taught solar arc directions. And that's really not an astronomical thing at all. I mean, it's kind of actually an astronomical aberration, but it works, right? And some of the old Hellenistic timing techniques, like, they're rooted in astronomy, they're rooted in nature, but there's a lot of things that we're doing that are more kind of magical timing systems and other things that I personally I've had a hard time embracing in my path because I've been kind of a materialistic astrologer, right? Not. I always follow that one with the joke of not to say that I'm in it for the money. That's kind of laughable. But to say that I want there to be something physical. I want there to be something I can touch and point to. I want there to be clockworks and gears and mechanisms, And for thousands of years, those who have been seeking, what is it that allows this celestial correspondence thing to happen? So for some people, as above, so below, that's all you need, right? It's like, well, why? Because as above, so below. Okay, but how does it get from the above to the below or whatever? And for me, I'm very interested in that question. And my personal belief, and this is something that I teach with students along the way, is I feel that at the core of the Earth, there is this crystal, and of every planet, we actually have some decent evidence for this, truthfully, like kind of approved scientific evidence for this, that is like this 12-sided thing. And so when planets are here, it's playing one note that I would call Taurus, and the next note's called Gemini, and like that. And it's my feeling that if we could actually unpack the very real mechanism, at least of the tropical zodiac, which is Earth's zodiac, that I think we could probably tap into the same energy source that probably was being utilized by people who were building pyramids long ago. Mm-hmm. And working with kind of the harmonic field and the kind of energetic field of the Earth, rather than just burning a bunch of stuff to, make electricity and such.
That's fascinating. Wow.
Yeah, and I'm literally of that belief. Call that weird or not, but I'm literally of the belief that if we could, and it would probably take a lot of bright minds, like everybody here, okay, to say, oh yeah, like this thing's real. We can see that it's real. So why is it real? Right? Because a lot of the bright minds are like, that thing's not real. Let me show you why it's not real. Right? And so we're never going to bring all the big brains together, but we're doing it more and more. There's more people who are astrologically focused who are talking to hundreds of them right now. Hello, you're the best. Right? So if we start kind of trying to unpack, okay, well, what is it? It's a thing. And maybe there's something, maybe there is a conduit for the as above, so below. Maybe there's something here, right? Well, what is it? And how do we sort it out? And if we do, I actually think it will lead to the energy revolution that we know is so necessary for us to like live as good stewards and children of the earth, right? Without burning her, just to be able to connect live, right?
Wow, fascinating, Brett. You just opened up a whole thing with that crystal in the earth. It feels sometimes these transits and all the overlapping of transits and the way that they interact and engage with your chart and all that, it sometimes feels like a kaleidoscope, one of those like old school things that we used to play with as kids, and it turns, and as it turns, different colors come through and different, you see different things. It feels like that as we're moving through life and experiencing all these knots and energy that happen with the movement. And it feels still so mysterious. And I'm sure there is some sort of explanation like you're talking about that would make it all make sense from that more logical perspective. But maybe we should go to this topic that we have today, which
I think we should do it next time, because we're like 26 minutes in and it's a big topic. And I think we're actually in a good topic right now.
Yeah,
synchronistically, right? Like courtesy of wonky space waves breaking up our float and keeping us from getting us where we were going. I think we're actually in a good place, and we'll just have to change the title of this thing down the road. If that's okay with you, Amanda.
Yeah.
Because I think like a lot of stuff's come up that's really alive for all of us, for all students of astrology in this day and age. And I feel in a very powerful way that we are living at the time of a very strong astrological renaissance.
Yes.
And so some of this has to do with the freedom that has been offered and the connectivity that has been offered by the internet. Right, which is a very clear symbol of something's changing here, right? I mean, we are in an age where everything changes, right? So electricity came around, and not too long after, we are having a live conversation from thousands of miles away, connecting with nodes of wonderful souls all over the earth, real time now, and also in the future, whoever wants to look back. And maybe some people have sorted out how to already watch this episode from weeks ago or whatever. That's a very powerful thing, and it's offering one of the keys for this great shift of astrology that we're experiencing. And I know this is something that is, part of your devotion, Amanda, and part of my own. Another key to the astrological renaissance right now actually looks less like futuristic than it is past. Because many of us, I just got this book, which is like Hellenistic, and even before kind of that period, but it's a Hellenistic survey of astronomy written by a guy called Geminos.
Oh,
right?
wow.
I'm like, well, named after this guy? Because he's also kind of complaining about how astrologers don't know their astronomy and don't know the sky, and that some of these things they're doing aren't necessarily like true, and it's pretty interesting. But he certainly was not like adverse to astrology from what I know. He was just like, this is the layout of the heavens right now, this is how it corresponds to these charts. Some of y'all are going off in these branches that are they're a little far from nature here, right? So there's a lot of examples in modern astrology. For example, many will teach that the sun is the natural ruler of the fifth house. Okay, you'll hear that often taught, right? And the general idea is, Leo is the fifth sign, and the sun rules Leo, so the sun's the natural ruler of the fifth house. Well, what's the issue with that? That means nighttime. When the sun's in the fifth, on average, it's like 8 to 10 p.m. It's definitely nighttime, regardless of what time, right? Why would the sun want nighttime? that seems abhorrently backwards. You know what I mean? And so when you look back into the tradition, no, planets rule signs, but they rejoice in houses. And the sun rejoices in the ninth, which is midday. The quote unquote house of God in the ancient approach, right? And we didn't know that.
Planets rule signs, but they rejoice in houses.
According to Hellenistic astrology and many of the classical systems, yeah.
Okay.
And it's a very different map than what most modern students are learning about astrology. And it's a really intriguing map. I'll just say them really quickly in case this is new for y'all. The moon is said to rejoice in the 3rd, Venus in the 5th, Jupiter in the 11th, Mars in the 6th, Saturn in the 12th, and Mercury in the 1st. And, you know, a beautiful thing about that is the old school approach was a whole sign chart. And so what happens is the first sign, part of it's above ground and part of it's below ground. And that's like Mercury, who does everything in both ways. Like, you know, he is the night and the day. And yeah, in investigating planetary rejoicing is a cool thing to do. And so this is, in a sense, a new offering to the astrological student. And this is, I think maybe I can finish up and see how this feels with your heart by bringing this back into this kind of strange divorce and maybe coming back together of astrology and astronomy. Yeah. Because we are in this really cool time right now. We're in a different living metaphor. It's actually that we are retrieving some of the roots of classical astrology. And interestingly, it's been shown that throughout time, when Jupiter, Saturn and their conjunctions move from the earth signs to the air signs, like it's recently happening, it's really kind of been happening since the 80s, and now we're full stop, that there have been renaissances like based upon Hellenistic astrological thought, including when the Hellenistic astrology really started coming in and coming together, although it's actually predates the accepted history of that by a few hundred years. The time when astrology was just incredibly burned at the stake, right? Like, which was, well, I guess 800 years later. And then another 800 years after that, where we did have this amazing astrological renaissance. Part of that was due to the church needing to dust off some of these books that they had buried in the cellar, because the way that the church was doing the year was wrong. And Easter started slipping from the equinox. And, you know, the excuses folks were making, like, oh, Adam recorded the first new moon wrong, or things like this. But what they had to do is they had to go back into some of the old texts, and like, because we had already figured this out, right? But it had been pushed aside for the new religion and the new empire and all that, right? So that actually brought with it a renaissance of astrological thought. This was happening also in the quote unquote Renaissance, right? When Cosimo de' Medici and other like wealthy families around the world were having agents kind of scour the globe to find the sacred texts of the faraway lands, right? And so the text of Hermes, the Corpus Hermetica, came back online at that time. And it said Cosimo de' Medici had his translators stop Plato to give their attention to Hermes, right? Like, it was known to be that important. And that was a very significant astrological renaissance. And really, there's a similar thing happening right now, thanks to the works of folks like Project Hindsight, the three Roberts, and others who have like just found these texts that actually weren't completely burned, but some of them we have to go through, and I might have this order wrong, but like through the Arabic to get to the Persian, to get to the Latin, to get to the Greek, because the Greek's like completely been burned. And then there's also lots of lacunas or broken spots in the text, and what was lost in the telephone game of getting translated through many languages to modern English and whatnot. But, you know, kind of Project Hindsight, I believe, started in 1993. And before that time, even there were more and more modern astrologers who were interested in kind of dusting off and recovering the ancient astrology. And why I mention that is because we're in this time of a renaissance that I think is very much facilitated by looking back. It's also, interestingly, brings this feeling and this experience right now of kind of a schism in astrology and in Western astrology. because you'll feel that a lot of folks are kind of like, oh, I'm like a modern Western astrologer, or I'm like a classical predictive astrologer, right? Even that idea, like in the 70s, where a lot of the kind of great masters of today in the 60s and 70s were really learning, it was kind of well known that Western astrology was the kind of dreamy, archetypal, psychological astrology. I mean, even this idea that you want to do your chart, not get away from your chart, like that's new. That's really new, which is trippy to consider, because now we take it for like, commonplace cosmology of what this thing's all about, right? Mm-hmm. So that was like what Western astrology is. And if you want to find out when you should get married and all these things, then you're going to want to go over to like India and get a Vedic astrology reading, because they're the predictive ones. That was like the common thought. Now, it wasn't necessarily true. Like there were plenty of people practicing horary astrology and medieval astrology and very predictive things. But as we dust off the ancient texts, and thanks to these amazing folks like, the Project Hindsight and Benjamin Dykes and Andrea Gertz and many who are translating these old texts, like now we have modern English versions of source material from the roots of our craft, we find that it was an incredibly predictive thing. And, kind of an incredibly good and bad world. And, and that's like, it's difficult for the kind of modern archetypal, psychological, healing focused, soul growth focused being to hold sometimes. And so that's kind of the potential schism we're at right now. Are you like archetypal, psychological, or are you predictive? But it also is offering the opportunity for this beautiful renaissance. And this brings me back to this idea that the telescope shop guy was sharing with you. It's like, I don't know, did the church break up that wedding? There's one of the Hermetic axioms is solve et coagula. Uh-oh, we're frozen.
We are?
Well, you froze on my screen. I guess I'm
Are you sure I wasn't just being really still? Because I was.
The amazement of your stillness, the core of your meditative soul. No, there was an actual freeze.
Okay.
You were so still that the whole internet froze and the earth stopped for a second. It was amazing. Thank you for that.
Uh-huh. Oh, no. Now he's frozen for me. Oh, shoot. Oh, okay. Well, hopefully this is short-lived, because he's on a roll and it's been going well. Oh, there you are doing something else. Shoot.
Okay, I'm not frozen. I'm just faking it. Okay. Can you hear me? So, solve et coagula is one of these old axioms, which means break apart and put back together. Are we live? Is this happening?
Yes.
Are we live? Okay. Break apart and put back together, right? And this is happening. It's happening now. It's happening for this, not necessarily for that astronomer who you spoke to on the phone, but for astronomy. It's happening for astrology. Like my work wants to be part of that. It wants to help astrologers reconnect to the sky part, to the astronomical part, to the nature piece. So we can say, well, maybe it makes more sense for the sun to be addressed with the 9th house, where it's the middle of the day, than the 5th house, where it's into the night. It seems like the sun would like the daytime. And we're just kind of dusting off text and realizing that, there were different rules applied to people born by day than by night. Makes sense. Yes. It's very different things, right? And so I think that if we can get through this schism, where you're, like all divide and conquer techniques, you got to choose one or the other.
Yes. Oh, he just made a great point and then froze. I'm guessing he'll be right back. There he is. You said the divide and conquer, you got to choose this or the other.
Right. You choose this or that. If we can get through that, right? If the modern psychological mind can maybe embrace some of the predictive techniques and not get weighed down in some of their pain, if some of the more kind of predictive, calculated folks might open to the truth that if you turn the old books open to Scorpio, you're not going to read that like sexual, alive, detective, leaving no stone unturned, transformational phoenix that rises from the ashes, and the things that like we know about Scorpio today, right? In the old tongue, you get, it's the nocturnal sign of Mars. It's cold and wet. It's the southwest wind. There's so much that has happened. And this.
Everybody breathe. He'll be back. Thank you for hanging in there with us. Oh, there he is.
It's so wild to me too, Amanda, because when you freeze, I'm not frozen.
Right.
And when it seems all good, I am frozen. It's confusing.
Oh, it is confusing.
So, we just sent this new SUV to Mars, and this is kind of like speaking to Mars, I guess.
Yes. Some of that footage is just, if you haven't checked it out, you guys, you need to do that. It is the, how would they go, like DuckDuckGo it or Google it? What is it called?
Just write 2020 Mars mission, and you'll find out a few of them.
And you can watch this footage that they're taking of Mars, and it's like nothing I had imagined. It is so different than what I had imagined, and it's way more beautiful.
Yeah, and a lot of rocks. Yeah, so Perseverance, and then we'll soon start getting some drone shots. They just sent the first helicopter to Mars, and if it works, right? But yeah, it's also an opportunity to share a bunch of fake pictures from Mars that people don't know are fake. So a lot of astrologers are posting these images of Venus and Earth and Jupiter from Mars, which is not a real photo at all. And
how do you know, Brett? So you're looking and going, astronomically, there's no way that's true, or you're seeing that they're fake?
More actually as a photographer.
Oh,
it's like, yeah. You're not going to get that kind of resolution with and light on the ground and still be able to see planets. Like, nope. And then I'll do a little Google searching, and sure enough, it's actually from an astronomy software that I use where you can just make the ground look like Mars.
Oh, that's sad. Well, people are asking how do they know? How do they know what's real and not real?
It's the best question.
Isn't it the best question in general right now?
Totally, including with astrology, right? Because this is something I tell my students all the time. They're like, wait, I'm not going to practice until I've mastered astrology. And I just start, I can't not laugh before they finish that sentence. Like, you can't. Just like you could never know the whole sky, you can never know all of astrology. And if you perfect one arm, you're actually moving further away from another. Yeah. Right. And so I think it's a beautiful thing for folks to get certified, but I would say then also keep your eyes open and how do you know if this is real, what you're learning? We'll test it.
Brett, we're kind of at our time. I feel like this is really fun being able to talk to you guys while we're here. This is really fun. This kind of changes the whole experience. I don't know about for you, Brett, but it is for me. Salvador asked a really great question that I think would be really cool for the scavenger hunt this week. If you're up for that, unless you had a scavenger hunt in your mind already.
I think that's great because we didn't really get to what I was going to share. I do want to just try to finish this point real quick. Okay. So solve coagula, right? So part of what's happening is that these things have been divorced. Astrology from the Western awareness is a really good example. And it was burned at the stake. And look, it's the scientists now more than the religious ones who are keeping kids from learning astrology and embracing the potential, right? So let's not say it's all religion. I would say it's happened for a reason. In fact, in my opinion, astrology cannot go away no matter who tries and no matter how hard they do.
Yes.
Because it is the poetic breath of nature. And the gift of this burning has been the opportunity to dream in to a whole nother expression of what astrology can be. And this also facilitated by the discovery of new planets, technology that lets us look far and beyond. That's not even a star in the sky. It's a whole nebula. What does that mean? Who knows, right? What did they say back in the day? They had no idea, right? So what is a comet? And you get 6 people saying a sentence, who knows? We have to go experience it, right? But also then as we are remembering some of what was written And I will tell you, most of it was not. It was the whole point of it. And that's another conversation, right? But as we're reintegrating some of the old, now there's that coagula, there's that coming back together. And it's a time for us to test and maybe do some separation. Maybe some of the new things are a little too far from the natural experience, right? So we're in at this time of astrology where you kind of one way or the other, okay, but I know that the heart will see that through and it's going to come back together and it's going to be this kind of purified alchemical wedding. And so interestingly, in the alchemical process, there's the conjunction and that's not the end of it. You then break it up again and bring it back together to get from the lesser stone to the philosopher's stone. And I think we're in one of these very important renaissances right now. And in my heart, that astronomer that you spoke to on the phone, he's part of it.
Totally. And so is everybody that's here. And
100%. That one's a lot clearer.
Yeah, it's amazing. It was amazing for me to be able to say to him, you know, I have a lot of friends who would be very interested in your technology and your telescopes. Like we should probably talk about ways that we can partner and bring things together because it's astrology and everybody in my audience is in love with the sky. I mean, that's what we're doing, just like you guys. So it was really, again, it was this moment of coming together. I'm glad it created an opportunity for us to talk about this in general. And I love what you just said about it all being on purpose. And you kept saying, if we can come together, if we can get through this weird part. And in my head, I'm going, when, because we will, and we're in that process. It's happening. There's no question. And I know you know that too. So Salvador, do you want to hear the question? It's so good. Okay. Salvador says, random question. I have a 5-year-old son who loves looking at the moon. What is one thing I can tell him about the stars tonight and without a telescope?
So loves looking at the moon. What is one
We're just going to wait. He'll be back.
Oh, I think you're supposed to answer this question, Amanda, because I'm frozen. Now you're frozen.
No, they say I don't freeze. I must freeze for you, but they say I'm not freezing for them.
I wonder if that hasn't happened for either of us. And just like on our end, we're experiencing freeze.
No, they are. They're definitely experiencing.
Okay. Yeah. That would be hilarious if nobody else was. And they're just like, what are they talking about? Right. No, anyway, sorry, y'all. Tedious as it is sometimes. Let's try not to blame planets for this, please. And yet also at the same time, we spoke about this before. I mean, Mercury is still between us and the sun in many regards, and there can be a bit of an interference pattern. I would like to say we should test that and, propose that as an actual mechanistic thing that seems to make some sense. Okay. So what's a fun thing to do? Well, I mean, I think following the moon is great, especially if your son's really stuck with the moon, right? This is what I would recommend doing for everyone. And it's a good time to do it. Amanda, am I frozen? Are we okay? No. Okay. Get outside and draw a picture of the moon and the stars that are. Oh, man.
This will be a really interesting editing job after this live. Sorry, editing team. Okay, you said draw a picture of the moon.
Draw a picture of the moon. Are we live? Are we good?
Yeah, we're live.
Yeah, try to catch the shape of the moon, right? Because that's going to change every day slightly. But in a few days, you certainly notice a significant difference, right? As we're now kind of in the waxing gibbous and it's moving towards full in a few days, right? So more. So then draw neighboring stars, bright stars that are nearby. A couple of days ago, you would certainly be drawing Orion, right? So a couple of days ago, the moon was on Orion's club. Are we live?
Yes, I'm frozen because I'm trying to remember that. I don't think I ever saw the moon on the club. Maybe I don't know.
Well, it's hard to see the club of Orion. But anyway, you saw the moon was above Orion.
Yeah.
And then the next day it's not right on Sirius. And that's another question. But it's, it's in that zone.
Right.
And so if you're actually making a drawing every night, the next day you check in and you're like, oh my gosh, the moon is over there now. And the next day you're like, wait a second, like Orion, like look tonight, like Orion will be here and the moon's going to be way over there. And you're like, whoa, she is fast. And to turn your kid onto that, and for us all to get turned on to that, we can learn these rules, like the moon is the fastest one around the chart, but to go see it, it's a whole nother thing. Okay. And you will see that as the moon is like separating from the stars and then coming back to the stars, the phase is changing. Right. So I think be there. Another, like the next level of it, and we did this before, like if the moon is here, where is the sun? And feeling the angle increasing until it's full and then decreasing as the moon goes back to the sun on the other side. Yeah. And then see if the moon will just freeze and then maybe come back live a couple minutes later, because that seems to be what's happening in my experience.
Amazing. Brett, the coolest thing is Sophia's, my daughter who's 9, is having some night fears. And she's a Virgo. So we're looking for like ritual that we can do every night that will be comforting and, kind of ceremonial for her. And she keeps asking, Mama, can we have our tea, our sleepy time tea, our like Tulsi sleepy time tea? And can we have it under the stars? Yeah. Can we go outside under the stars? It's like, yes, we can. That's amazing. But I love that Salvador's son is also connecting with that. We talk about this on Seeds of Light, our show for parents and children, but we're that little child inside of us. It's the same. It's like, oh God, it feels so amazing to go out there under the sky and under the stars with your tea. Maybe you'll see a fireball like I saw, which is just, whoa, what was that? But I love this. So we're gonna draw the moon and the stars that are closest to it all week. That'll be our scavenger hunt. Yeah?
Yeah. And I mean, so just basically watching the moon move day by day. For those of you who are really willing to commit, watch Mars move through the sky. Much slower. The moon gets around in 27 days and Mars in like 2 years. So it's a much slower car in that heavenly racetrack, but you will day after day see Mars slowly moving through the backdrop stars. And this is how we learned astrology, and you will connect to it personally. And to bring the kids there and not try to say that's what this means, it's doing this to you. No, ask, hey, how you feeling tonight? You know what I mean? Like, much more interesting, isn't it? Because really I think we have a really hard time listening to the sky because we're so consistently talking to it. Oh, Mars, you're in Taurus and you're da-da-da. Instead of, hey, wow, what is it when you're in that space, Yeah, and so there's one other thing that I'd say, because I love that Madeline's actually asking.
Sophia
is asking to go out under the night sky and to have the tea. And we see a lot of comments here too. I love it, right? Because that fireball that you saw, actually, it's a very long and different story, coincides with why the human being in the core of our DNA has some fear of the sky, because we were struck by one of those in a big way not long ago, if my heart's right, and I'm not the only one. And so there's a lot of natural kind of fear of the darkness, even fear of the stars. You can see it in the words of our tradition. In Coagula, like we're returning to something older when the children are actually asking to go out under the black darkness of the night to feel better.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
What an interesting point. Oh yeah, that's so interesting.
And I'll say this to everyone: if you're waking up from difficult dreams, right? I mean, this should be a time where we are actually. It might be you're getting pulled outside to receive the healings of the heavens. And we all want to go back to sleep, and we can toss and turn and fight the flow, or we can go outside, and maybe you just need to receive like one light code that's been calling you out, and then you get to go have the most blessed dream there is. I learned that in Seattle. It was like, it's cold, I don't want to go out, there's only one hole in the clouds, but it actually allowed me to tune into just one star, and it was like bing, and now you're back in like the deepest sleep I've had. So the star student will be called to the stars, and the more you allow yourself outside, the more you'll be allowed inside.
Mic drop right there. Can we add that to our scavenger hunt? Is to, if you do get awoken in the night, you can't sleep, whatever, anxiety or nightmares or whatever, go outside and see what happens. Can we make that a second one this week?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Y'all are the hunters.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You're the guide. You're the guide on our hunting sprees. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you for hanging in there with us throughout this almost an hour. We'll keep working out the kinks on this new platform, but I gotta say, I love it to see you here, Kate, James, Katina, Priscilla, Tracy, Kelly. It's been so much fun to be able to see your comments and just, it feels more alive, and to be able to be live with you here on YouTube as well, which we have never been able to do at the same time. So thanks for your patience. Okay. If you're really interested in all this stuff and you want to go deeper and you want it packaged in a way that you can really follow and start to apply it to the chart and start to apply it to your interpretations in astrology, make sure you get on the wait list for Brett's course that's coming up, Sacred Astronomy for Astrologers. So this is going to be astronomy, but done with our the way that we already look at the sky in mind. Like, I think if we went and we took like an astronomy class at some university, or we just like took a random astronomy class, I think we would all feel like it's just devoid of something really important. Like the meaning isn't there. The quality of what we're looking at isn't there. So you're going to get that in this course, and you're going to start to learn how to apply these things that we're talking about here to your practice of astrology. You can join our waitlist at astrologyhub.com/sacred astronomy, astrologyhub.com/sacred astronomy. The course is going to begin in the beginning of April. So those of you who are in Astrology Foundations Level 2 right now with Rick Levine, that class will end, and then we'll shortly be going into this astronomy class. But this is a key to what we were talking about earlier, Brett, where we're coming together. So we've been divorced. We're starting to have our grand reunion, and bringing that astronomical wisdom and knowledge into your practice of astrology. I think it's really, really exciting. And we at Astrology Hub are very excited to be able to offer this platform for Brett and to facilitate the course for all of you. So
I'm so honored to have the opportunity. The thing I think I'll add here, because it's relevant to our topic today, is this isn't some geeky science class. This is like coming to the sky in a sacred way. But very importantly, it's also preserving an astronomy, an earth astronomy that in many ways might be lost altogether. Like the astronomy that was practiced by the stone circle builders, the astronomy that's at the heart of astrology. It even, I feel, seems that many of the astronomers are ignoring this earth astrology so that they can attack astrologers for their signs and constellations not aligned, and other things that just show me that they haven't learned very elegant, dare I say, simple, back on the ground, eyes to the sky astronomy that's at the very heart of the birth of astrology. And so it's not only helping we astrologers connect, integrate, slow down, get natural, receive kind of the old codes, it is also preserving a very important essence of earth astronomy that might otherwise be lost.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for bringing it to all of us. We're so grateful, Brett. Someone is asking what telescope I got. And I just want to tell you, Priscilla, I went with the Celestron Nexstar 8SE. I even love the way they're named. It's just like, Celestron Nexstar 8SE. It has the computer in it that helps you actually find the thing you're looking for, which Ann Ortley said. She's like, Amanda, if anything, that's the most important thing, is that you can type in what you're trying to look at and let it find it for you. She said, because the sky moves all night. So it's actually hard to keep it focused on one thing if you're trying to look at things. So I don't know. They're on back order. That's how many people are looking at the sky now. So it's not just us. How cool is that? It's on back order. And so I'm supposed to get it mid-March. So I don't know if you should get it yet, Priscilla, until I get to report to you how it goes. I also got the bundle that includes the carrying case and some extra lenses and some like battery pack thing. Brett, I feel like you need to come out to Maui and help me get this thing set up.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And the truth is, I mean, I've played with telescopes when I was younger, but I also want to stress this. What I'll be teaching in sacred astronomy, it's not like a telescope course. You don't need a telescope. Your lenses are your eyeballs. It's really having the human and more of the kind of ancient approach. And like Kelly just asked, do I have a telescope? I don't right now. I bought one for my nieces and nephews, but it's like not great. So I'll probably invest in one at some point. I'm not like Amanda. I don't live in Hawaii with really dark skies, but you can still see some really cool things. Like I'd love to tune into Orion Nebula, and I've been so into astrophotography lately. It would be fun to link the camera up to the telescope and take some close-ups for y'all. So anyway, these could go on forever.
They could go on forever, because I was just going to launch into why I love that the astronomers, the astrologers who are into astronomy are taking photographs, because then the photographs can have the story too. So it's like, here's the cool astronomical thing, and here's the story. Like, here's the correlation of what was happening on Earth at this time and how this was influencing our life here on this planet. Which to me, it's like, you got to bring the story together. It's like, here's the what, and then it's the why. Like, who cares? So anyways, that's my personal perspective. But I'm super grateful we get to be here and share this space with you every single week. Thank you for being here. Brett, thank you for being our guide. And thank you for being a part of this StarryTelling. Make sure you get on the wait list for the upcoming course, astrologyhub.com/sacred astronomy, starting, I think it's April 1st, right? Is that our start date?
Yeah, somewhere in there. We're still ironing it out. We're going to ask the stars. We're going to ask the stars.
Yes.
I'd love to answer just one question that came in that I think is relevant from Katina, who asked, what books do I recommend for astronomy for astrologers? Truthfully, none of them. There's some great books, like Bruce Schofield's book is one that's used by a lot of astrologers today, but they're
Oh, someone very cute was telling me to breathe in through my nose and my mouth. It's true. It's just much better for us, right?
Can you do that?
What? Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Well, we got frozen, so I'll just have to answer that in the comments section. We better get out before it all blows up again. Sorry about all that. I don't know.
Thanks for being on this journey with our new platform as well. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for your enthusiasm. Thanks for your amazingness in the chat. It's really, really fun to see you here. Take care, everybody. We will see you on the next episode.